episode 319 of the Global from Asia podcast. I'm always trying to figure the URL. I don't know if y'all check out the website, but globalfromasia.com/China-ride. We're going for a ride.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight-up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
Thank you, everybody, for choosing to download and listen to the Global from Asia podcast. You know, somebody brought it up to me. A lot of people might be listening to less podcasts now with this pandemic, and they're not commuting or traveling or on the road or on a plane or in a bike. Sound like a Dr. Seuss book, but they're not traveling right now. Maybe you're not traveling, so you're at home or you're not moving much, and maybe you're not listening to many podcasts. I don't know. I hope you're listening to us. You must be if this is in your ears right now, but I do hope you enjoy these shows, and I hope they keep you company. It is a lonely time. I'll be honest, I'm lonely up here in Shenyang. I was fortunate enough to have a friend of mine, David Ho. He's actually was on the show a long time ago talking about his Chinese employee management, and that was a good show, and he shared interesting insights, but he just came up as a friend. He's actually was the best man at my wedding, and he is also the godfather of my children, so it was really cool he could make it up here from Shenzhen. Flights and travel seems somewhat normal in China. A lot of my friends in China said, hey, you should come down to Guangzhou or Shenzhen or Shanghai or Beijing, and it's true, I could, but I personally am just too paranoid that there's going to be some kind of news article I'm going to read when I'm in another city, and they're going to say, outbreak in this place and nobody can travel and there's quarantine, and I don't know, I'm still kind of shaken up from being stuck away from my family for months, and so I didn't make much moves, but Dave did take the trip, and the risk came out here. We went to a botanical garden. I don't know if some of you listen to or watch my personal video blogs, mikesblog.com/vlog. I have those too, so much content, but anyways, I'm kind of rambling here, but I don't know. Hope you're listening to podcasts. This is an audio-only podcast. We do sometimes do the videos lately, but Kent and I, our guest today, we did audio only, and we were hoping the connection stayed stable. It seemed to. It was a longer conversation. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's a really good one. Zaitlik, Kent and I met in 2012. We'll talk about it in the episode, but he goes through his whole journey. That's why I call it China-Ride. globalfromasia.com/China-Ride. Talks about coming into China 2009, fascinated. I think lots of us, myself included, were fascinated with what we saw, and he went through the ride. He's gone through the ups, and he talks about the crash, and he talks about coming back, and he talks about going through all kinds of different ventures. He's been in finance, he's been in biotech, he's been in Amazon, so it's really a wild ride of a discussion, and I really enjoyed it. I think this should inspire some of you. And he gives a lot of tips, and we wrap it up with some tips. And after this show in a blah, blah, blah session, I will share some of my insights, because it was a really long one, and I didn't want to take up much of his time. But I'll put some of my own tips and insights from what him and I talked about. He goes through so much, so I really thank Kent for sharing with us so openly. Nothing to sell, just really sharing. So thanks, Kent. Let's tune into the show. We've been getting really good vibes in the GFAVIP.com member community. This is the VIPs, the people that love what we're doing here, love the show, love the content, want to get inside. We have private calls, private forums, private groups, and we are doing, even next week, we're doing a private Lazada workshop. One of the members, don't want to call him out, but he was not willing to do it on a podcast, doesn't want to do it publicly, but he's willing to help out the members and share his Lazada experiences, how he opened up a Hong Kong company, how he's selling in the Philippines, how he's getting his products from China, and he's going to share that. We're going to record it, but it's only going to be for members. I'm sorry, I'm not really a good salesman, but I'm just trying to say we got to support the show. If you like what we're doing here, we do have some even more amazing stuff connecting with the other members. We have our Hot Seat Mastermind and other events for members only that supports the show. But don't worry, this podcast will stay free. I love sharing free content, but if you do like what we do and you want to get even more gfavip.com. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Global from Asia podcast. We always keep it real here and get you guys and gals some insights of things happening on the ground in China and other parts of Asia. Today we're in China again. I'm here, and my guest and friend with me, Kent Zaitlik, was with us, CEO of Moze.ai, and it's really great to have you on the show finally, Kent. How's everything?
Yeah, it's really good to be here as well. Everything's great, man. I mean, apart from the whole world going
The
into
world
submission right now.
collapsing, yeah.
Yeah.
Besides the world
Besides
collapsing.
2020, yeah. Besides 2020 kicking our butts, like it's pretty good.
Yeah. So a little bit of background about us. We met, I believe, 2012. Can you believe that was 8 years ago? Probably was.
Yeah.
I think it really was the summer of 2012, and I remember it was maybe one of my. I had been to Shanghai before, but I came up from Shenzhen, and that was. Maybe I'm just not in the scene as much anymore, but back then I felt like that was when really the startup world was really kind of maybe just starting or really so open. There was these meetups everywhere. I think you invited me to speak at a, forgetting even the name of the brand of those meetups that you were helping with.
Yeah. There was a bunch of them, but I mean, yeah, we were called Next Step.
Yeah, Next Step. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was.
That was fun. And yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just getting older, or maybe I'm just not. I guess we're all stuck in our houses now too. But back then everybody was just open and meeting people and events and sharing, and it was really awesome times. And it's also great. You've been to some of the Global from Asia events and the community, so that's been awesome too. And yeah, I mean, you've done so many different kinds of businesses. I think when we met, I think you're still in environmental biotech. Even then, you were working with some various investments and biotechs at that time. So I think I always like it for you as a guest to kind of give us a little bit of intro. I hope I didn't screw it up too much, but you want to share a little bit about yourself, Kent?
Yeah. I mean, I first came to China actually in 2009, studying abroad in Fudan University, and so I was studying Chinese and also finance as well in Fudan University. And I don't know, I fell in love with China. I love the energy, I love the pace, and I really liked what I saw. I was like, man, this is really going strong. And I was determined to learn the language. So as soon as I graduated, I was like, I got to come back here. I have to become fluent in the language, which I eventually did become fluent after a lot of pain, suffering, and a lot of hard work. But yeah, so I graduated in 2010. Stayed. That was like sort of like a little bit after the financial crisis. And so, as you can imagine, there was really not much going on, and me graduating in finance, and I really hated finance actually, and it's not really what I wanted to do. What I really wanted to do was start a tech company, and I thought, I had this grand ambition, like, oh, if I learn, if I learn the business and the finance and how money works, I can start any business I want, because at that time I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. But that was totally wrong. That was a really wrong approach to that. Definitely understanding the engineering and either with computer science or understanding the very sort of like very specific engineering detail or mathematics of what you're wanting to build in that specific industry or subcategory is very important. But anyway, I realized I wanted to do tech, and it was so hard to get into tech, like specifically biotech in China. In the United States. And I was like, you know what, I'll go. I bought a one-way ticket to China, not really having any plan in mind other than just getting really good in Chinese, and then we'll see what happens from there. So eventually, I actually ended up started working for a company called E8. It was a startup with a bunch of like starry-eyed, girls and gals, guys and girls trying to save the world and trying to import technology from abroad, sustainable technology from abroad, and implement them in China. Um, yeah, you might remember a good friend from there. But yeah, so what ended up happening was that I worked for them for a bit. I actually started a company, helped start a company that was focused on aquaponic technology. So we were developing commercial aquaponics, basically, and these are like basically what aquaponics is you can kind of think of it as combining aquaculture to hydroponics. So you use the fish and grow the fish and use the water from the fish to actually pump it through a hydroponic system and use the nutrients from the fish that they excrete and use that to grow the plant. And it's sort of like a positive feedback loop. The fish, create excrements, and then the plants then utilize those nutrients and then clean the water, and it goes back to the fish. And then basically you're saving like 95% of water that you would otherwise would be wasting in a regular traditional methodology of agriculture. So China really liked this. We were able to secure like a lot of land from the government, the Chinese government, and we found an investor. We found all these people involved, and we came together to start this project and start the company. And literally 1 week before the engineer was going to fly over from the United States and start the project, the investor pulled the plug and ended up starting a whole new company on the side, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then you can imagine the legal battle that actually incurred. Then everyone wanted to sue everybody at that point. It was a nightmare, and I was in the middle of everything. And everybody, just it was just it was crazy. Anyway, so my first company then collapsed because of that.
I was in hearing about on the side of hearing that.
Yeah. So I was sort of an indirect result of the collapse of the first company I joined ever in my life. So that was great. Collapsing your first startup. But from that chaos came like 3 other sort of after the dust settled and everything like that. 3 other companies actually ended up being developed that's focused on different types of like hydroponic systems and new types of agriculture. And those companies actually went on and did quite all right. And actually, I was very happy to see that I think 3 or 4 companies were developed after that first cataclysmic event. And of that, I think only one really sort of made it, I think 3 or 4 years later, they actually kept on building. So, that was quite cool to see that happen, take place. But I just was like, okay, let me retreat back and I wanted to get my hands involved in the VC world. So I got involved in venture capital and started investing in like early stage high tech startups and understanding how that mechanisms work. And I was associated at a company called China Materialia. 2 very smart PhDs who started this company. It's also another startup, a startup VC. They only had at that time 80 million RMB in management. And as I recall, you were one of the ones who you were actually interested in getting some investment from us.
Yeah, I went point, there. Right? I pitched at your office. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, you're having a WeChat. I remember you had like a special WeChat app, right?
Social agent. It was called Weibo Agent, but we rebranded to be more diversified. But yeah, it was like a social search app and lead gen app on Weibo or Chinese social media. Yeah,
that was very cool, and that was a very cool experience because not only we were investing in early stage high tech startups that were really focusing on sort of the cutting edge of technology, and basically because they were material scientists, they were trying to actually bring in unique technologies into China, and so these were like what we call haigui, right? Returnees. And so these were people from Stanford, from Harvard with unique technologies and implementing them in China. And these guys had 10, 15 years of experience of research. And so it was really cool. One of the key aspects they were working on was actually like cold cathode carbon nanotubes, which was really interesting. So you can actually sort of like create quick bursts of electrons just instantaneously. And this actually was trying to, what we actually try to do is try to find like new markets for them to actually utilize the technology, because a lot of times scientists and also, many times like entrepreneurs, we come in and we have this great idea or we have this great technology, but we have no idea how to use it, right? Or,
Mm.
where to use it. So what we did was, at the VC is like, we actually did a lot of consulting work for these type of companies where they had this technology and they didn't know how to use it. And so we would help them find specific markets to utilize, and basically, basically try to tap into those markets. And so for this market, they actually had to create an X-ray system using the cold cathode carbon nanotubes. And so, but then that became a whole ordeal and a very costly process, because X-ray, they couldn't find any of the component parts to actually manufacture or develop the X-ray in China. So they actually had to then move and locate, they actually had to move to Japan to get all those specific parts for
Unbelievable.
this X-ray. But the X-ray was so precise that you could actually X-ray the beating of the heart. Like as the heart beat, you could actually literally, on a millisecond sort of moment, you can actually completely capture the moment that the heart beats. That's how precise this X-ray system was.
Oh,
And
wow.
as you know, China, having X-rays everywhere, right? When you go into the when you go anywhere, you have X-rays, right, following you around in China, specifically in the metro area, which most foreigners don't really know or understand, because in Europe, there's nothing like that. You don't even have like to pay if you don't want to in Europe. You can just kind of like, there's no even like anything stopping you in Europe. So in China, like no one knows this, but like every MTR station that you go to, every metro station you go to you have to put your bag through these huge X-rays, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so that was their main focus, is to actually create the X-rays, and they did that. They launched that and everything, but it just became a real sort of like struggle for them, because they to just get the logistics right on all the sourcing and the materials and everything. It's just like, and so we actually had to come in and help them with that as well, because we came with the idea. It's like, okay, let's do X-ray. Maybe that's a very big market in China, and then we actually had to figure out how to source all of that. To kind of create a whole sort of like very intuitive system, right, and a very efficient way to actually bring to China, right? Because then
Okay.
if you're then create manufacturing in Japan, then you actually have to go through all of these sort of then you have tax, you have tariffs, and you have all these things, right? So it's a big nightmare. So
Yeah,
then
yeah, man. You know,
yeah, so
yeah, this is pretty cool, man. I'm sorry. Keep.
yeah, and then after that, I decided I want to get, after that, we also did what's called multinational. We worked a lot with multinationals, and we did what's called open innovation consulting. And so we were consulting on like several different companies. Basically, there were some large companies that are like Shell Oil, and others, but they were interested in actually understanding the technology that was actually in China and trying to piece together a solution. And for Shell, for instance, what they were trying to do is they were trying to actually, drill holes extremely, very, very, very far down. And what they actually ended up doing was actually finding the same cameras that are actually used in the International Space Station. We actually docked the station. They use those same cameras to develop a new type of camera for drilling extremely low depths, like 2,000 meters or more. Actually, I think it was like 2 miles or something like that.
Mm.
So they have to be very precise when actually going way down. So then they created these like really intense like lenses for that.
Okay.
And so we worked with Shell for several for similar sort of aspects, and doing also like mergers and acquisitions in China to acquire specific type of technology, or to acquire specific manufacturing um, logistics or logistical sort of distribution channels. Or if you're looking at like different parts of logistics, in terms of like manufacturing different specific parts, they were looking at different ways to make this area more efficient, right? So we would come in and help them in that area. So
Okay.
that was very interesting. And then from there, I went to engineering for like sustainable engineering. So then we were doing sort of like, I was working with Alessandro Bassani. You know Alessandro, right?
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, incredible guy. This guy is like super, just man. He's probably one of the best bosses I've ever, come in contact with. I mean, he's really just incredibly sharp, very hardworking. It just pushes you to the edge. But I learned incredible amount from him. But yeah, I stayed at that company, which designing the environmental enterprise for 3 years. And what we were doing is like trying to actually bring sustainability to the luxury market, actually, because we found like a niche in the market because nobody was really doing it. And so he cornered the whole market, right? So he was doing, he started off when I got to him, he was like, I think 5 years in. And so he just became cash flow positive. And so I came in and we were doing basics, LEED certification. I don't know what LEED is, but it's basically sustainable sort of certification for different building structures, and just to show like, hey, we were able to accomplish X, Y, and Z sustainability metrics, right? And we help them achieve those metrics, working
Okay.
with the architects and the engineers. And so that's kind of like how we got in. And so he started working with Chanel, Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, and Prada, and then we start to then become the number one, uh, go to boutique company for these specific new certifications.
Okay.
And so, and then we were able to close, like he started off, I think when I first started, I think we did like, at that point, there was like 60 projects. And then by the time it ended, I think we had over maybe 200 or 300 projects worldwide in 25 countries. It was ridiculous.
This is great, man. Yeah, this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it gave me some flashbacks from yeah, back in the day. Um, I'm gonna say
And
some.
then,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. And then what was cool about that? Well, so yeah, I mean, so just fast forward, like towards the end of it, we then created a product, which was very cool. We created so, we got this idea, he wanted to actually start doing, I don't know if you remember, in Shanghai, we were working with, different companies, but there was a IEQ testing equipment. I don't know if you know the indoor air quality.
I know that. Yeah, I remember. I have apps that tell me like the air quality. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but there was I don't know if you remember. So there's a company in another startup that was in Shanghai, from Shanghai, that was focusing on indoor air quality. And what they did was they created a sort of a indoor air quality unit, right? And they actually started manufacturing in China. And what they did was it was basically like this whole very it was sort of like very sort of high grade indoor air quality, looking at like CO2 levels, looking at PM 2.5, PM 10. I had 5 different levels of indoor air quality metrics that they were measuring, and these were extremely very very like high grade machines that they were utilizing inside buildings. And so they would basically put these machines and put these yeah, I guess these machines inside these buildings, skyscrapers, and we worked with them to actually create a completely different service that actually also looked at air energy usage. So then we started to actually create a complete package, a complete system that actually looks at the air and energy within buildings. And we started to actually so I actually built that out, and I worked with Chanel and Prada and Gucci to actually put that into their stores in Shanghai, and then also in Korea and Italy. So
Ama-
that was a really cool, very very interesting sort of like aspect. And then from there, I just kind of got the the drive, or I got the confidence to then start my own company, and that became the biotech AI company, mostly AI.
Okay.
Yeah. And then so then I've been doing Mosey AI for the past 5 years, and we raised money. We raised $100,000, um, And yeah, so it's a bioinformatics and AI, and you might know Sophia the robot.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So the AI doctor behind Sophia the robot is my co-founder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Dr. Ben Gertzel. And so basically, I basically reached out to Ben. I got connected to him by someone, and this is before he was like famous now, but and sort of before Sophia was famous. And so I reached out to him in like 20, I think it was like 2014 or 2015, and I started working with him actually like while I was at B, and yeah, he had this sort of like this thing this project he was working on that was basically combining AI and applying to bioinformatics, and I was like, I got starstruck. I was like, yes, this is great, and I
Yeah.
realized that that this company will not go forward unless I just quit my job at B and go full throttle to the company. And
Okay.
so that's exactly what I did. So I went full throttle with Mosley, and I basically ended up moving to Shenzhen, and that's where we met up again,
Yeah, I remember you
right?
reached out to me. You came down to Shenzhen. So,
Yeah,
so yeah. I mean, I'm not so science into up on science, but maybe you can give us kind of a layman's explanation of what the current what your current business is doing.
yeah. So what basically we're doing is we're creating machine learning applications and uh, basically just applications to accelerate biomedical research. And the way we're trying to do that is trying to understand how does disease, right from your genes all the way from other different uh, parts of the body, actually correlate to disease, right? So, why does a disease, become a disease, right? Either
Hmm.
it's genetic or polygenetic, or there's some type of like kink in the body, right, that happens. So the problem is that there's so much information out there, and it doesn't all sort of like nicely fit together. So what our system does is incorporate many different types of databases with all this information, and it combs all this information together, and based on the users and what they're trying to look for, it connects this data and helps them figure out the connection between basic public data and their own private data, and look at the connections between that, and points them in the right direction of how to actually accelerate their uh, basically to accelerate the research.
Okay.
So they don't have to like comb through all this data. But during this process, actually, I have a very good friend who's been actually building products on Amazon and selling products on Amazon, right? And he has over, I think, 70 or 80 products that he's created and sold on Amazon. So he creates like 12 or to 15 new products in private labels every year. And he came up to me, and he's a really good friend of mine. He's like one of my best friends. And at the time, actually, so he created a company like 4 or 5 years ago. And so he started off with actually just like selling, like creating with his business partner. They created these jar openers, right? And all
Okay.
they did was like recreate these jar openers, and they're very good. He's very good at doing design work. So he does design work, and they sold these jar openers. They each put in like $200, right? And so they did that, and then they were able to make some money from that, and like, oh, and so they invested back into another product, and then another product, and another product. And so they work with factories from India, from China, and from Argentina, and they've actually never, at this time, they never met any of the factories, actually.
Okay.
For 4 years, they didn't meet any of the factories or the people. They were basically just, they found them online, or they found them through different brochures. Because they had these catalogs, right? They just found most of these guys through catalogs, and then, they looked through all these things, and then they found and tested the right ones, right? And the right products, and then they just like thought, oh, this product looks pretty good, or this specific manufacturer looks good. They have a pretty interesting product. And then what would they do is they would work with the manufacturer to make the product better, right? And they would iterate and iterate and iterate. And my friend is just, so they actually are the best sort of couple for this, like business couple, or business partners for this, because my friend is one of those like sort of really crazy thinking and just intuitive types, right? And he stays up all night. So he'll get up at like 1, and then he'll start like working around like 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. and then all the way to 6 a.m.
Okay.
And then he'll go to bed at 6 a.m. And that's sort of because most of the factories that he works with now are in China.
Yep.
Yeah, but then he also likes, he's one of those, night owls, like extreme night owls, where he just likes to work at night.
Well, that works for him. I know. I'm the opposite, man. That's why I moved here, because yeah, I was tired of being up late talking to factories when I was in the U.S. But that's cool. So yeah, I mean, this really cool story. So then yeah, of course, I think probably listeners are interested on the Amazon side here. And I know some people are sensitive to share too much about the product or what, but I'd love to hear how you found this product or discovered it.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty open to it. I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, he has 70 products, and he works on 15 new products every year. And so, one thing he's been doing is, he created all these products, right? And he started to, and then he started pulling me in, right? He's just slowly starting to make me, do more and more and more. And I would help him here and there. And what happened was he ended up coming to China.
Okay.
And he flew here eventually, yeah. 4 years, he eventually flew here, and I met up with him, and he ended up the factories that and so what happened was actually right when I moved to Shenzhen, that's when he actually started coming here for the Guangzhou fair. And so we started to actually, and then I said, okay, I'll go to the fair with him. So I went to the fair with him, and we started to go, treasure hunting, right?
Okay.
That's kind of like how we call it. Yeah. And so, when he first came for the first time, he did the whole fair, right? And that was
That's
very dumb.
exhausting.
Right? Yeah. It was like three or 4 weeks. It was, yeah. He was like, yeah, there was no reason for him to do that. But what he ended up doing was he ended up going there for like, and so now what he does is he'll go just for the specific phases that he finds of interest. And so he'll just hit up the phase, and he'll do like a phase like for maybe like 3 days, and that's all he really needs to actually get what he needs from that. And it's much faster because then he can roll through like, he can get like maybe 10, 15 new product ideas, right? And new products that he can work with. But the way he's very different from most people is that he'll work on a product. So a recent product that, he was creating was like socks, and like he'll work on the socks for like, he put about 1.5 years of research and development, like for his research and development on just working with the socks.
Crazy.
So he worked with a manufacturer, yeah, and the manufacturer actually never really created socks before, but he's created other items that were very similar to these socks, kind of similar, right? They created stuff similar, and so they started to create the sock, and he had to go through the threading, and these are not any socks; they were like bamboo socks. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it just takes a lot of focus, and he just keeps on going at it and going at it and going at it, and he'll test it and test it. So he'll get the sock, get a sample, and then bring it back to the United States, test it out, and then and then he'll put it through the wash and stuff, and send it the socks, right? And then again he'll do it again and do it again and do it again. I think he had like maybe 9 or 10 iterations of that.
Awesome.
Just socks. And before he got the right one, before he actually started selling.
So so it's good he needs somebody like you here for sure. So how does he protect all this IP and all this work that he's doing? It sounds, I don't know, I mean, it sounds to me.
He just has like really good rapport. So he's been working with this one factory for like 3 years. And they've made a lot of money. So, he started off, like I said, like, putting $200. I think him and his buddy put $200, right, in the first product. Now they make about $2 million a year between just the two of them.
Okay.
Yeah. in their product. So they make about $100,000 in sales every month, and and that's increasing. And they want to double that for next year, and they want to double that for the following year. And they want to double that, double that, double that. So that's why they're coming with better and better products. But the way that they do it is they have just a really great relationship with their factories.
Okay.
That's like number one. And then the factories, I mean, sometimes they'll, and then, of course, like on Amazon, people will start to copy them because they're like number one. I think they're the 10,000, 1 in 10,000 seller. Do you know about that?
Can't say I do.
Okay, so once you reach a certain level on Amazon, you become like you get a certain like level. So I mean, part of it is like you're working with the algorithms, right? Working with the selling algorithms. You're working with the PPC algorithms to try to actually get that gain, right? And then the other part of it is actually like the logistics and warehousing. So they have this warehousing, and then then you actually have like Amazon Prime, and you have to actually sort of like get involved in that area. So then your Prime accounts, are then stored, to the warehouse, and your Prime products are then stored in the warehouse, right? So you reach that sort of level, but they're the 1 in 10,000 seller, meaning that they're 1 out of 10,000. They rank among the highest percentile in selling.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So they're one of the best sellers on Amazon, and they've I mean, they're doing easily more than $100,000 of sales a month. So they're pretty good, just for two guys, two
Yeah,
guy
man.
operation.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely awesome.
but they have designers, all throughout the world, and then of course the manufacturers are in China, and they just work really well with the manufacturers. And my friend being able to stay up all night, he just is able to just work with them consistently. And then me being here has been able to speed the process up for our particular product. So one thing is like he reached out to me like, hey, let's get a product going, let's get a product going. So eventually, like, we started working together about on that product. And yeah, I mean, basically it's underwear. But I have a very specific focus on sustainability
Yeah.
and environmentalism, and so that's why I decided to we want to work with new types of like materials that are more sustainable.
Yeah,
And
that's true. I
so
like it too. I mean, especially nowadays, we need to, yeah, all focus on sustainability. And it's also a good,
yeah,
it's also a good story. I can picture the branding. Even I can picture the story of the brand. It does make sense too. Um, yes, this has been a cool little story. I mean, I think, what would you say to somebody like, Kent in 2009? I know you kind of mentioned some things earlier, like you thought you could learn finance and do any business, and that was wrong. I mean, is there things, maybe we can kind of, I know it's also been amazing catching up and hearing, and maybe some lessons learned, the School of Hard Knocks from Kent in China and all these ventures you've done, and yeah, like, but you kind of hit you kind of said, oh, the first one was a failure, but I think that's part of the game, that's part of the process. I don't, I failed multiple times too. I think that's just, it's better than not taking action, right? And I think that's the only way to learn and to grow. But is there some things you want to share, like lessons learned, School of Hard Knocks, for maybe people inspired by today?
yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do, right? I mean, like my friend, I mean, one of the major things for him, like he just jumped in and just did it. I mean, the one who started creating products in China. He just, I mean, if that's what you're really focused on, then yeah, I mean, I think just getting involved and knowing all you know, knowing a lot, following a lot of people who are doing well in the industry, but then trying to learn for yourself and investing in yourself and investing in courses. That's what he did as well. Is he invested a lot of courses, and he does a lot of his own designs, and Illustrator and Photoshop, and like he takes a lot of courses, and he actually goes off and he'll go to these like events that actually he'll pay like maybe sometimes $2,000 US for, to just go there and learn how to actually get for instance, how to get products into stores and such. And so just never stop learning. Like, I think that's one thing you have to really, I mean, learning is so central. It's so key that the people that I see who do best, and they continue to learn no matter what. Like, and they learn the really hard stuff too. And I think, like, just focus on things that interest you, you know, rather than like what other people are doing. Really focus on the things that really interest you, and really focus on that learning. I mean, if I were to go back in college, you know, as you know, entering college, I would definitely focus on like engineering and, you know, biotech type stuff. Because that's what I'm trying to do right now. Because what I eventually want to do is I want to actually start creating synthetic bio materials and apply that to, you know, into the products I'm building right now for like underwear, socks, and other sort of things. That's what I eventually would like to do. But I mean, having that very technical knowledge is so key, and it's so important, because, you know, oftentimes it's hard to find that person, or if you do find that person and they're going to be employed, you have to pay them a lot of money. So
Yeah.
oftentimes that becomes the most sort of like central area. And the thing is, like, my previous startup, like Mosey AI and stuff like that, I mean, the biggest thing that I really just I hated most, and was preventing me from actually being able to go further, was because I didn't understand the technology side by any
Mm.
means. I didn't understand the computer science. I didn't have a firm understanding of the biology, and I couldn't speak to my customers, and I couldn't relate with them at all, which were scientists. And so that becomes very tough. Like, you know, and I would say that every area that I failed in, I failed because I didn't have a very firm technical knowledge of that area. But before jumping in, because usually what I do is I'll just jump in before actually having a firm grasp understanding of what's going on. Because I felt like, oh, you know, I'll just learn it as I go. But that's actually really not the case, because the thing is, when you're going, you're too busy going, and you're not busy enough like actually learning. So you really have to set aside a significant amount of time into learning, and learning correctly and learning right, and then applying that, and not just like running around, you know, like a hamster in a wheel, right? You're running around, but you're oftentimes not going the right direction, because you don't actually have a firm understanding of actually what's going on. So developing a firm understanding of that specific industry or area that you want to get involved in is key. It's super key. It's very essential. And then also understanding yourself, and understanding like what are your strengths and weaknesses, and understanding. And then if you have certain weaknesses, find the people who can fill in the void, right? Like that's also extremely central. I mean, my friend was able to do so well because he found somebody who was more business focused. I mean, they make an incredible team, you know, because they were able to find that. And yeah, I mean, business partners is very important. I mean, you need to find people that you respect. I mean, that you can get along with, that are just not, and I guess also who are closer to your age, because that was another big problem of mine before. When I went and got myself involved with Ben, I thought, oh, you know, everything will be fine. But, you know, he's 20 years my senior, and
Yeah.
relating to those kind of people, I mean, it's very hard. And then they don't take you seriously, and it takes a lot of effort to drive the company, and then they just won't really give you the time of day if they don't think that you're willing. So yeah, I think it's very important to be extremely good at selecting your business partners. You can't just pick whoever. You need to really be methodical in who you pick to be on your team. I think it's very, very important. Uh, and especially understanding yourself and where your weaknesses lie, and the strengths and weaknesses of everyone around you who's working with you. And then like realizing the, you know, certain weaknesses and trying to strengthen yourself, and especially knowledge, you know, and ascertain that knowledge to the best of your advantage by any means necessary, right? And really strive for that. That's so key and central to your success, and never stop, right? Like set aside every day like 2-3 hours of just learning, because that's so important to what you're doing. And then execution, of course, and building, continue to build. And I think also what's very important is that we have this sort of idea that, you know, oftentimes it's like, you know, to be successful, you have to be lucky. Well, that's not really true. To be successful, you have to be consistent, and you have to be diligent. You have to be disciplined, and you have to just attack every day with the same amount of effort, right? And you have to also be, you have to understand that bad things will happen, like COVID-19, right? Like this is a black swan moment, but it always happens. And the companies that will prevail are the ones that already had thought about something like this happening, right? And prepared for it. Having a lot of cash on hand and preparing for the worst. So preparing for the worst and really striving and building and be consistent and being disciplined with learning and building and execution is key. What they call like the 20-mile march, like every day be consistent, put in the 8-hour work, that necessary to actually build. If you want to have 12 products every year, well, be consistent and build 12 products every year, and make that, whatever your goals are, make sure you frame those goals, make sure you have a very focused and empirical, and use actually empirical evidence as well. I mean, test as much as you can. Like, your products will probably fail in the beginning, but you need to understand why, and you need to be very empirically focused and data driven. So before you make any choices, you need to understand, are you actually really solving a problem, right? Is there a problem? Like, what are the customers, and be just extremely ruthless about understanding the problem that you're trying to solve. And then when you actually solve the problem, use an MVP, right? I mean, put a little bit amount of resources into figuring out, okay, like let's create this MVP, because then we understand from all the data that we've gathered that this is going to solve it's going to solve the problem. And then you fire that bullet, right? And you see if it works. You see if the MVP actually is working and solving a problem. And if it does, great, then build upon that and then, iterate and become better and better. And then you put more and more money and resources into that, right? So that you can actually, go big. But don't go big, in the beginning. I would say you want to test a lot, because most of your assumptions are going to be wrong in the beginning. And iterate, continually iterate, continually improve, continually innovate. If you don't innovate, you're going to die. And that's actually how you defeat the whole IP problem that people, think they have.
Yeah.
You need to continually innovate, right? I mean, people are always scared, they're going to steal my IP. Well, just keep on innovating. You have to be, everyone's going to copy you no matter what. If you have a great product, you're going to be copied.
Yeah.
The key to actually, the key to doing what my friend does is he just innovates like crazy, and he continues to innovate all the products, every year, better and better and better and better. And and because no one is doing it, especially in this industry and selling on Amazon, like no one's thinking about quality, right? No one's thinking about that kind of stuff. So you have to really be consistent in the quality, and to win in Amazon, you have to make sure you're going to get at least a 400 or 500% ROI, right? So that's also very key. You need to be able to do that. Because if you're not going to be able to actually sell a product, at its cost at 400%, 500%, then you're not going to be making any money, right?
Yeah.
So you have to at least sell that. So that means you have to really focus on quality rather than trying to barter like better prices, because bartering better prices, everyone is doing that, and you're just going to get left in the dust.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a price competition, and you're not going to be making any money. I mean, I've seen guys who are trying to sell their companies, and I ask them, okay, what is your margin? And they tell me like 10% or 15%. I'm like, that's nothing. I mean, you're not gonna be able to sell your company on a 10% or 15% margin, right?
Yeah.
My friend my friend's margin is 40, 50%. I mean, that's where you want to be. And the way you're able to get there is by creating very high quality products and really putting a lot of effort and working very closely with the manufacturers to create better and better products, and keep on innovating every year. Like, keep on adding new things, keep on trying to make things better and better and better. And that's the only way you're going to be able to beat your people, not by, trying to beat on better prices. That's kind of like what the lowest of the Amazon sellers do, because they're not going to be making that much money from that, and it just becomes like a rat race then at that point. So
Yeah.
if you want to sort of like really sort of operate at the height, you need to really focus on research and development. You need to really focus on innovation, innovating, iterating consistently, and trying to beat whatever's on the market as best you can by continually bettering the product. Right, that's the only way you're going to be able to beat your competition, especially if you're working with manufacturers in China. Right.
Agreed, man. Yeah, I mean, damn, you just unloaded a lot of total appreciate. Yeah. There's so many ways we can go here, but we're already getting to the hour mark. So,
Yeah.
but I guess just for the margin part, I think just to make sure people understand. So 400% from China cost, right? So if you buy it for,
Yeah.
yeah, if you buy it for $5, sell it for $20, right? Just so people
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last one I do want to ask. There's people listening, and you've been in China. I think you had similar intentions. The energy and the hustle and everything attracted here, and you're still here. Is that? I mean, do you think that's an advantage or disadvantage? Within, of course, Amazon, I see the advantages for product development, but maybe even in what you're working on with this science and technical is it you think you're better
I mean,
off here?
hustle. You mean is hustling an advantage? You said.
Oh no, I mean being in China.
Oh, I mean for specifically Amazon or type stuff, or for what?
Maybe I could leave it open ended, but I guess definitely first. I don't know for the science stuff. I'm thinking. I know we're not in that topic anymore, but maybe for. I think Amazon. I think is clear. There is advantages for the factory manufacturing. So I guess I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
thinking.
I think it depends. Like, I mean, I think it makes sense though to be closer to your to be closer to your customers is very important. Um, because the thing is, like, as long as you are sort of connected by WeChat and stuff, I mean, the advantage I have here is that I actually can meet in person the factories, like, well, before this whole COVID thing, but I was meeting them like every week or every other week, or well, that's because I set up this thing, but I would like the iteration, the development process was much faster. So, I think if you're just starting out, then it's clear that it's better to be in America, because that's where you actually have to, like, deal with the warehousing and deal with, like, like actually shipping and all that kind of stuff, and actually, be close to your customers. Like, you want to be able to get the products and then test it on your customers, which is going to be in America, right? I think that's very important. Like, you can't really do that here. I mean, you probably can do that here in Hong Kong a little bit. You can ask a few testers, but so the advantage of being in Hong Kong would then be just really sort of like the development part, which I think it does have an advantage. So this is just looking at Amazon. Me being here in China in general, though, I mean, I have a really strong understanding of, like, I can speak Mandarin now, and I have an understanding of how Chinese people work, and I can connect with them very well, and I understand WeChat and know all these things. But at the same time, like, my friend was able to actually have all these really strong connections and build up this company already, being in America, never having set foot in China ever in his life, and already built up a pretty strong, robust company. And only he started making $2 million a year. That's when he actually decided to come to China. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so he was already doing very well, but then, he realized that making trips to China actually, was a way more efficient way. And actually, me being here, I was able to do QC much faster for him. And so right now what happens is, like, we'll have several factories send me some samples, and I can test out those samples. And rather than actually taking a few weeks or a week, maybe 2 weeks or something, it'll take, like, a day or two, right? And then be right on my doorstep, and I can test them out, and I can see how they work. And then, and then we work our way to a final product, and then that final product will be sent out. We'll have a major milestone, and then that will be sent, to America, and then they'll test it over there. But I think, yeah, I mean, having China definitely has developed in me a very sort of like hustler mentality, and you definitely get that by being here. But I think, in general, like, if you're a hustler, you're a hustler, right? I mean, I think you can be a hustler anywhere,
Yeah.
in the U.S. and otherwise. I think, but learning language and having the opportunity of being here, you get inside the mind of China and Chinese and how they operate, and how you can actually work with them, because I don't think China is going to go anywhere in terms of being the manufacturing, basis of the world. So I think that's going to be clear. And you definitely have this, an advantage and disadvantage, but I think it's best though, if you can do it, having a base in China and also in the United States at the same time. But if you can't, then starting off in the U.S. is better, because it's better to be closer to your customers, because that's who you're really trying to serve, right?
Yeah, man. I think that's a great place to, wrap up today's really surprise episode. I got a lot out of this, and I'm sure listeners did too, and I hope you enjoyed sharing, Kent. So where can people find you, or any links or websites that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, you can just go on LinkedIn. I mean,
Okay.
and search Ken Zaitlik. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the easiest way that I'm usually sort of connected to people by,
Oh, okay.
professionally. And then Mozi.ai, Mozi.ai is my website. I mean, although there's
Okay.
not really much there. I'm sort of in the process of transitioning through Mozi, as I want to get more involved in synthetic biology.
Okay.
So I'm focusing more on synthetic biology, and also in my underwear company.
Awesome.
But I want eventually. My goal is eventually to apply, synthetic biology, and develop new types of new types of materials, just sustainably based materials, and then develop new products, or apply that to new products, and sell them in the United States, or throughout the whole world. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome, man. This has been fascinating. Thanks, Kent. And keep on grinding, man. 2 to 3 hours
Yeah,
of
man.
learning a day, dude. I don't know. I'm behind you on there. I even heard, I don't know, I think at least even 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. But of course, if you can get to the 2 to 3, but that's a great.
Yeah, I mean that's major. I mean, yeah, if you can at least do 1 hour of study, I think it's very good. I mean, at least 1 hour, but I mean, 2 hours is good. But I think 1 hour of really solid, like, studying really makes a big difference,
Yeah.
every day. I mean, if
Awesome.
anything, just like even 20, 30 minutes. I mean, what's most important is consistency, doing it every day,
Mm-hmm.
and
Agreed.
having a very structured learning plan. So
Okay. That's the wrap, man. Thanks so much.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Are you looking for a new product or service in the cross-border e-commerce, cross-border trade industry? We do have a pretty extensive directory of reviews that gets some pretty good attention. globalfromasia.com/reviews. It's where we try our best to write up some overviews of different services and logistics, in software, in trade, in communities, events. A lot of times they are from our partners in our community, and we try to be as unbiased as possible, and we try to let you in the community also submit your review there. If you want to check it out, give some reviews, give some feedback, suggest some other content to be added, globalfromasia.com/reviews. Check it out. Thanks again, Kent. I thanked him again after the recording, and we're still talking after the show, after the recording, and I was saying, he gives us so much insights, and there's other ways to think about it too. He studied like finance and business in school, and then he decided, like you said, he switched into becoming like the scientist, the technology person. So he feels that he had a lot of catching up to, a lot of learning to do. And then after the recording, we were also discussing it with the partners in the Amazon business. He says one partner's the designer or the artist, and the other's like the PPC, the analytics, the inventory. And I said, and again, I wish I had kept recording. It was like already an hour call, discussion, interview. But, he was saying, I said, this is what I call the artist and the garbage man. So what I say with Amazon or e-commerce businesses or product-based businesses I've also worked in tech startups. Like he said, we talked about it in the show, the tech startups. Tech startups usually need like a programmer, and then you need like a biz dev sales, and then sometimes there's like a third partner is kind of like the designer, the UX, the maybe understands how to like kind of make the website usable, which is very important for a web-based business. So usually, at least two. And I think in an e-commerce business it's two, and one partner is the product person. Maybe I call it the artist. In my course I have in Global from Asia VIP, I talk about the artist and I talk about the garbage man. So the artist is the person that knows the product, that loves the product, that loves the customer, the avatar, that understands the consumer, the buyer, the market, that likes to go to trade shows or likes to kind of understand the trends in the market. And I think the other person is the garbage man. And no offense, but that kind of came when I think I heard it somewhere many years ago, but that's the person that doesn't care if they own a garbage-based business. They don't care what they sell. They're not attached to the product. A lot of times I call Chinese sellers, many of them garbage men, because they don't care what product they sell. They just care, is it profitable? Is it good niche? Can I get, is it not too competitive, but it is enough demand for me to make money? That's what they're looking at. They're the numbers person. So, Ken's saying he's kind of transitioned from learning in school to be the numbers person to moving towards the artist or the scientist or the programmer or the experts. But I think, you can't do everything. And honestly, this is my mistake. I try to do everything. I want to know everything, and I think that's almost a weakness of trying to do everything. You have to build a team. I'm not saying I know how to do it perfectly, but I think that if you look at successful ventures, it's like the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, right? So you can't really switch. I try to do that. Honestly, what I try to do is my morning is my maker time. I think it's Paul Graham. I don't want to mess it up, but some smart VC in Silicon Valley says maker time, manager time, or maker partner and manager partner. And the maker obviously is the one creating, whether that's, these podcasts. I think I'm more of a creator, or it's, creating a new product for Amazon or e-commerce, or it's creating a new programming for a SaaS startup, the CTO. And then that's the person, they can't be interrupted, right? They can't be on chat on Facebook Messenger, and they can't, do sales pitches and, not saying they can't, but it's also like a different mindset. And then there's the management time, the manager time, the person that's grinding on phone calls, that's doing email outreach, that's doing social media, that's pitching investors, that's getting in big customers, depending on the business, or running the numbers, running the inventory numbers, running the profitability, And maybe some of you are thinking, I can do both. And honestly, I try to do both. I think I do kind of do both, but it hurts my brain, I swear. I have my maker time in my morning, and then I have my management time in the afternoon, where I do the calls. And if you talk to me, I notice I usually do calls in the evening or calls in the afternoon. The emails are replied, because in my morning is my maker time. It's my creating time. It's my time where I get to work on with my team, and I get to create all this content. We're making out so many websites and so much content. So it takes that brain, that side of my brain. I think it's the right side, and then the left side is I'm not sure which is the right side, but the better way is probably have somebody that's dedicated to making all day and all the time, and in that mindset all the time. And then there's this other person that's got the mindset of the selling and the biz dev and the numbers and the profitability and the Excel, the garbage man, the businessman, businesswoman, finance. I hope I'm not disrespecting anybody, but I think if you're listening to this, I think you should probably say to yourself, oh man, I hope my microphone's not broken. If you're listening to this right now, and you probably call yourself one or the other, right? Are you the artist, the creator, the programmer, the maker, or do you think you are the sales one, the Excel one, the inventory control one? I think knowing yourself, and maybe you change, I think I've kind of gone through phases where I've gone on both sides. Ken seems to have gone on both sides. But I think, if you're one or the other, you have to spend time doing what those types of people do and be really strong in that type of role. And I think that's the key, because we can't be good at everything. So study and learn. It's also called emotional intelligence in a team, where you know who in the team would be responsible to do that thing, right? So something comes into the company, an email comes in, a request from a client comes in. We know who's that person that should be doing that, right? And that person's studying those news articles and those things that are happening in industry, following that part of the process, whether it's Amazon PPC or whether it's product development or trade war crap with tariffs. Who is the person responsible for knowing these things? And maybe I'm rambling. This is a longer show, episode 319 of the Global from Asia podcast. We have some more amazing shows coming up. I mean, man, there's more and more requests to come onto the show from people, and getting lots of good feedback from people. We do try to get iTunes reviews, although I barely, honestly, we don't have so many, but if you could figure out how to do that, we do have a link in the show notes. And we do have show notes. We have long show notes. We have the image of the guest. We have profiles. We have, bullet points. We have links to things mentioned. And this one's at globalfromasia.com/China-ride, RIDE. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I do appreciate you listening, and feedback is always appreciated. And we are just pushing forward. Thank you, and wish you the best.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.